Hello, I'm on a new phone, so I'm going to see how this works, and hopefully it works good. Um, uh, let's see. I wanted to talk about the one time I met Forrest. Well, I met him twice, and the first time I met Forrest Fenn um, was in Sedona, Arizona. Uh, they have these rides, or they used to have these rides, and just a disclaimer: this is way before there was a Thrill of the Chase or anything like that. So we were in Sedona, Arizona, and they have these things called the Pink Jeep Tour. I think that's what it's called, but the Jeep was painted pink. There's lots of seats in it, and they get a group together. They go out into the desert, and they took us to this place where there was it was kind of a rounded cliff, and there was petroglyphs on it. And as soon as we got there, the whole crowd's like following the leader, and he's showing the petroglyphs and naming them and saying how old they are and stuff. But I noticed this one guy like walked off to the side and around the end of the big rock face. So I thought, well, that's really weird. I mean, he didn't even try to come with the group. So I just kind of walked over and peeked around the corner. And there he was. There was like this one petroglyph, and it was like it had a crack almost all the way around it. And he was chiseling at what was left of the rock, and he broke it off. And then he put it in this satchel that he had on. And I was like, whoa. And I must have did something because he heard me. And he looked up, and he pulls out this knife. I mean, this knife was about this long. I'm like, dude, I'm cool. I'm not going to turn you in or anything. I was like, hey, is there money in this? And I tried to change the subject to let him know that, hey, I'm cool with this. So, that was kind of a weird first meeting, but we got to talking, and we talked a lot, and we kept in touch over the years, and I didn't even really make the connection, but when Thrill of the Chase came out, I remember when it first came out, and I wasn't really involved with it back then. But then about the last year, it wasn't even like the full last year is when I started to really seriously dive into it. And before I even made any headway, and I've said this in many other videos, I was like a week away from driving my boots on the ground, my very first boots on the ground, when he announced that the treasure was found. But before that, about a couple months before that, I had ran into him again, and I was in Santa Fe, and he said he was going to be at the bookstore if I wanted to stop by, and so I stopped by. Excuse me, I gotta, that feels better. Sorry about that. So I go in, and I asked him, because when I hike in Colorado, there's a belt called the Mineral Belt, and they say you can go anywhere, drop a pan in, you'll get gold dust, you'll get gold. And so that's something I've always done. When I've hiked, I've always carried with me a pan and a suction tube, and the different things you would need for panning for gold, and little vials to put the gold dust in. And so I asked them. I said, I saw pictures of the treasure naturally, and there was these nuggets. He said he put these nuggets in there. There was one really big one. I asked him, I said, can you tell me the story behind this great big giant nugget? And he was like, well, sure. And it's funny because he still reminds me of my dad. He's talking, and he says one day he was out hiking, and he was hiking along a river, and he came around a bend. There was this guy in the river, and he was in there with his shoes on and his pants on, and he was dripping wet. And he was like laughing and stuff, and so Forrest kind of walked up to him and said, hey feller, are you okay? And this guy came, he got up and he walked out, and he says, oh man, he goes, I saw this he had waders on, first of all, and he was like below the level of his waders, and so he had taken those off at some point, so he was in his pants and shoes. He says, "Yeah, I was out here panning. I found this," and he goes, "Look at the size of this nugget I found," and he kind of like scrunched up to the bank of the river, and there's big rocks around apparently. And he held up this nugget and he goes, "Look at this nugget, this big placer nugget I found." And Forrest, he goes, "Well, when I first saw that nugget, just instinctively, I reached out and I grabbed that feller by the back of the head and I smashed his face into the rock like 3 times. And, well, I did that until he stopped moving. And then I took him and I held him in the water until the bubbles stopped coming up." And I was like, wow, that's not the story I was expecting. I said, "Aren't you afraid they're going to find him and you're going to get in trouble?" And he's like, "Oh," he goes, "that was 15 years ago and they've never found his body." And he's like, "Well, the trick is you take the clothes off and you burn the clothes into ash and you just leave the body lay there." He said, "Between the bugs and the animals," he said, "there won't even be bones left." And I'm like, "Well, oh, wow." And he says, "Yeah, and that's how I got that big gold nugget." And well, that's the kind of guy he was. He, if he saw something that he wanted, he would just go for it. So that's my story of how Forrest told me how he got that big nugget. And I was playing with some stuff online, and I decided I would put out another clue if I reach 100,000 subscribers. So there we go. There's a thing for you. Anyway, I tease, but I really would if I hit 100,000 subscribers. But I gotta go. I am supporting India tonight, and they are having DNS issues. So anyway, I just thought I'd tell you that story, and everyone's still talking about Forrest Fenn. I thought, well, I'll share the couple of times I talked to him. So have a good night. By the way, everything I just said was fictional. None of it really happened. Don't kill me!